Christian nationalism. The left labels you and the church folds like a cheap suit, as though you can't combine the two. I'm a Christian husband. I can love two things at the same time. I can love God and my wife. I can love God and my country. Paul was a Christian nationalist. He invoked the laws of Rome and the rights of a Roman citizen. He knew his country better than we know our own. And if you want to talk about a theocracy, there's over 50 nations worldwide that have a majority Muslim population, and 17 of them do not allow the Bible to be publicly read. Forbidden. Some of those are over 95% Muslim. In America, we have the freedom of religion. It's not a theocracy. They use that term because they took the first 16 words of the Bill of Rights of the First Amendment, and for over 200 years, it was clearly understood that it was the freedom of religion. But then they called it the separation clause, and they used an obscure document, the letter that Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptist Convention, where he said an invisible wall of separation, which in context, when you read the letter, is a complete opposite of what the ruling was by the Supreme Court. And now it became not freedom of religion, but freedom from religion, which ushered in secular progressivism. Islam, and this is what Charlie was taking on just before God brought him home, Islam is a political structure disguised as a religion. And secular progressivism is a religion disguised as a political movement. It's called the Red-Green Revolution. They come in and they destroy the morality of a Christian nation through secular progressivism, and then Islam comes in and consumes it. And when you see gays for Palestine, they are useful idiots. That's what we're up against. And unless we understand that this nation, of the people, by the people, and for the people, the freedom of religion, not from, it's not a theocracy, but as Christians, we are to contend. And Sharia law is antithetical to our Declaration of Independence because it demands adherence. We allow the freedom of religion. They demand or else you die. And this is what we're fighting for. And unless we wake up and the congregations are educated, every nation, like London stand now, and France is now 9% Muslim. It's about to roll. This is an invasion like we've never seen. And unless we wake up, what you see in your children's future, just look at your kids and say, you know what? I don't do politics. I don't care about your generation. Just look at them and hand them nothing, even though you received everything. We can't do that. And for all of you, Churchill said, the man was cursed to have been born in uninteresting times. That's not true for us. We've been appointed for such a time as this. Everything in our DNA, God has assigned each of us to stand in this moment and hold back the gates of hell. And push them back in Jesus' name. Amen.
John, you've gone and talked to school boards in 22 states. You're so judgy. And I'm pretty sure you're a Christian nationalist too. And to be honest, I'm embarrassed. No, I mean this. I'm embarrassed that the godly men in those communities haven't been dominating those school boards long before John got there. They should know you're going to stand up for your children. What has happened to us? But tell us what you've learned. What's your takeaway?
Well, as it relates to going to the school board meetings and addressing the issues, the hot button issues that are being pushed upon our children that many parents unearthed during the pandemic, learning about Jody having two mommies and Sarah having two mommies and Tom having two daddies and all of the woke CRT stuff, racial consciousness stuff. There are three takeaways that I have as I've traveled the country. Number one, perverts are perverting the hearts and the minds of our children. We have to call these individuals what they are. It is perverted to take pornographic content and set it at the fingertips of children. It's in addition, it's not only perverted, some people call it indoctrination, some people call it grooming, but I call it mental rape because it assaults the soul, it stains the brain, and it robs children of their innocence. They are forcibly shoving sex down their throat, making them the customers for Planned Parenthood. And keep in mind, Planned Parenthood provides the majority of sex ed curriculum in the public school system in America. And so they are working hand and fist. Perverts are perverting the hearts and the minds of our children. Number two, parents are unaware. They shouldn't be unaware. Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart. And so parents should be dialed in on what their child is being taught. You can't send your child off to Babylon and not expect them to come back as a Babylonian, rejecting your biblical worldview. You can't do it. And then lastly, pastors have failed to do their job. Pastors. Pastors. See, weak pulpits create weak Christians. How is it that, I go into different cities and states and I try to work with pastors, and not all pastors, but some. Too many, you're right, Pastor. And when they get to the school board meeting, many of them won't even read the book verbatim because they're too squeamish to read what a 4-year-old might have to read in a library. Pastors. And so I assemble them, tell them to join me, and hey, I give you the books, what you should read, and you get there, and they summarize, or they won't even open the book and read the book to shove it down their throats. See, the only way for us to fight gender theory and queer theory is that we have to expose how hideous it is. People have to see it. A great deal of my success has been just opening the book and reading what the book says. I have a book right here. I travel the country with books. I'll tell you a story. You go through TSA and you have some of these books in your bag, and they check your bag. I'm like, all right, I'm an alpha male. I'm straight. I'm going to a school board meeting, right? I try to tell them quickly because they see all of the many books that I have, Pastor Gary. But this book is entitled Worm Loves Worm, all right? And it says, but which one of you is the bride? Ask the bees. How can we be bride's bees if we don't know who the bride is? And then it says, I can be the bride, says worm. I can too, says worm. And so what this is pushing upon children is same-sex marriage. This is made available for kids ages 4 and up. So both worms can be the bride. Then it says, but one of you has got to be the groom, or how can I be best beetle? Asks beetle. I can be the groom, says worm. I can too, says worm. We can be both. Amazing, says spider. Really? Ask beetle and the bees. Wait, says cricket. That isn't how it's always been done. Now keep in mind, in this book, the cricket is the preacher. Cricket, the crooked preacher. All right? Then it says, then we'll just change how it's done. Says Worm. Yes, says Worm. Story time with Pastor John, right? And so they were married because Worm loves Worm. How can we allow Barack Obama to be more vocal in what he deemed marriage to be than what the Bible has explicitly called it to be?
Hey, I want to give you a personal invitation to join my podcast, Culture and Christianity.
For a person to think that the Bible's not political, you don't know the Bible.
We're trying to understand how to take our faith outside the walls of the church and live it out in the marketplace.
He will show you what to do, whether it's in our communities, in our country, or other places in the world.
So I brought in some friends, some people that are trying to do this.
How could anyone call themselves Christian and be pro-choice? Is beyond my comprehension.
But I think he wanted them open and in need of him every day.
We have been living through a season of unprecedented deception, propaganda, manipulation.
Everybody says, oh, Israel is attacking schools in the Gaza Strip.
I want to be a part of seeing culture and Christianity intersect. Hope you enjoy the podcast.
Hussein Obama will go down in history as one of the most divisive presidents ever. He divided us on the issues of race, divided us on the issues of sex, decorated the White House in rainbow colors. There used to be a time where people said, hey, what I do in my bedroom is my business and that's none of your business, and that's true. What you do in your bedroom is your business. Now, I don't advise you to do certain things. We don't talk about it enough, but homosexual sex takes nearly 20 to 25 years off of a male's life span. So the most loving thing that we can do is tell a child about God's design for sex, the truth of it. But we went from doing what you want to do in your bedroom and that's your business to then having the White House decorated in rainbow colors and having this content in the public school system. Now our daughters have to go to school and use locker rooms and bathrooms with guys who might wake up in the morning and say that they want to be a man or a woman, changing their sex as a social construct. That's where we are. And you'll be hard-pressed to find pastors like these. Give these men a big hand clap. Give them a big hand clap, really, like seriously. Salute and celebrate real leadership, proud masculinity, men who are not afraid to be protectors. Protectors. Can I get someone to shout protectors? Protectors. Protectors. That's the role. That's the role of the man. That's right. Protectors.
For the pastors out there who have a misunderstanding of this idea of separation of church and state, and you think you can't do this because there's a separation of church and state. First of all, you don't know your history. But let me just reverse it. Let's just look at it this way. The state's now invaded the church. What are you going to do, Pastor? It's redefined marriage. What are you going to do, Pastor? It's redefined sexuality. What are you going to do, Pastor? They're taking over your kids. What are you going to do, Pastor? I mean, I'll take your position. And when it says pray for kings and those in authority with quiet and peaceable lives in all godliness and reverence, can I ask you the names of your school board members and your council members that you pray for by name, according to that pastoral epistle, and the issues they're dealing with that allow your community to live quiet and peaceable lives in all godliness and reverence? You can hear a pin drop when you ask that. That's all I have to say.
Gary, you said something that I think is at the heart of this conversation. You said there's two restraints to evil: the Holy Spirit and the church.
That's right. Come on.
And it's easy to tag some of these big cultural issues that we get applause for. But as a pastor, to me, it's much thinner ice. This really starts at our kitchen tables. And to invite the Spirit of God into our homes and our families. One of my annoyances is we give children's coaches for 5 years old and 7 years old and 10 years old. They watch too many professional sports, and they're going to turn 6-year-olds into something. We give them more authority in our home than the youth ministers in our churches. So you have some experience in pastoring. What does it look like in practical terms for the church and our families to cooperate with the Spirit of God, to see evil restrained? I'm tired of losing 3,000 children a day. I'm tired of universities becoming indoctrination centers. I'm tired of worms being in the libraries of our small children. So you introduced that idea, I thought, so eloquently. Talk about that just a moment.
So, that old saying, the family that prays together stays together. I think it's important that around the kitchen table, we get back to influencing our children with the gospel at home instead of expecting everybody else to do it. It starts with, if there's a dad in the home, it starts with dad as the spiritual leader. But to my wife's credit, speaking as a pastor, so I'm just going to let you in on a little bit of information. Sometimes when I come home after having, ministered to a bunch of people, I'm kind of done. You know what I'm saying to you? Well, you may not know what I'm saying to you. You know what I'm saying to you guys? Okay. And my wife, bless her heart, when our kids were growing up, my adult son, Austin, is here. He's on staff with me now. And we have 3 kids. And she would take the initiative at dinner time to open up the Bible, and we were going to memorize a verse at dinner time. And, as your kids are at a certain age, you can only do so much. Their attention span is limited. But my point is, do all you can to live out your faith in the home so that it's palpable, so that by the influence of your lives, that you are consistently at home the way you are in public and vice versa, that your children will be influenced for the glory of God, for that next generation. We have to be living out our faith at home. That's where it starts. And if our kids are not seeing it, then they're going to learn whatever the greatest influence is in their lives. They're going to learn from whatever that greatest influence is, whether it's their phones, whether it's some coach, some teachers, their peers. We have to be presenting the greatest influence to have the greatest impact on our families if we expect to see this next generation really living out their faith. So it does begin in the home.
So a lot of you know my son Mikey is chief of staff for Charlie and now is serving Erica. He's 23. And when COVID came to California and Governor Mussolini said that the church was non-essential, he said strip clubs were essential, cannabis distributors, liquor stores, abortion clinics were essential, but the church, the bride of Christ, was non-essential. And Charlie made the worst prediction in radio history when he said the church in California is not going to take that laying down, and it folded again like a cheap suit. Jack Hibbs stood, myself, Tim Thompson, a number of other guys, but the lion's share of the church is folded. John MacArthur stood, lion, yeah, he was Patton. And when I was preparing to violate the restraining order by the government because we had kept the church open, I called my attorney and I said, I know you can't counsel me to violate the law or he'd lose his license, but I said, can you tell me what I'll lose if I keep the doors open and disobey the restraining order? And it was a legal pad and a half, a page and a half of consequences. I'd lose a church, lose my house. My son would lose his NOTC scholarship. I mean, it was severe consequences. And I said, I'll call you back. And I called my wife and I said, honey, I'm planning on violating the restraining order tomorrow, but I don't want to do it without you. And I read everything on that list. And my kids were present at the time, Mikey too, and my wife, I'll never forget what she said. And invoking Richard Wurmbrand, he said, his wife said to him, I'd rather be a widow than be married to a coward. And I looked at her, I'm like, you're hot. You're amazing. And I had told stories, and I did that children's book out there. It was a story I would tell my kids, raise them, teaching them what you learned today. And then I had to meet with the staff, and I told them, but before that I met with my kids. I said, kids, this is what I'm planning on doing, and it's gonna affect you. And they said, Dad, we couldn't be more proud of you. Mikey too, And I sat down with the elders. We have 15 elders. And I knew it needed to be a unanimous decision. And I said, fellas, I'm planning on violating a restraining order tomorrow. It needs to be unanimous. And you have the same fiduciary responsibility. You could lose everything I'm gonna lose. And in case you don't vote unanimously, in front of you is my letter of resignation, because I can't live with myself. And 14 of the 15 voted yes. The 15th guy abstained because he was an attorney and we needed him and he couldn't vote to break the law. And I watched as I stood, and I told Mikey and my kids, I said, Dad, what if we lose? And I looked at him and I said, you don't understand. Ours is the obedience, God's is the outcome. Children born in times of adversity are the leaders in the free world to come. Set an example for them. Pastors think that peace is the absence of conflict. Then they're peacemakers by nature, but peace isn't the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of Christ in the midst of the conflict. He said, I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword, the sword of truth. Make a stand. And don't coward because you're afraid of your buildings, budgets, or baptisms. Count it. You lose everything, but count it all joy. This is what we're called to. This is a movie set. It's going away. Only what's done for Christ will last. We'll stand before him, and whatever it is you're holding on to, let it go. Fight. You have a generation looking at you, wanting you to set an example. This isn't the Love Boat, and I'm not Captain Steubing. This is a battleship.